So a few days ago I posted a couple of videos uh, about I guess Armageddon. Uh, Now I know that I say that this is a dream, um, and it isn't fundamental reality, and that's absolutely true. Um, there is a sense of urgency to things now, especially with Donald Trump getting in as president. This There seems to be something very, very quickly coming up here that is going to be a complete paradigm shift um, in experience, in possibly what's taken as fundamental reality itself. So, anyway, there are a bunch of factors, systems, whatever you want to call them, that have been on an exponential route, trajectory. And it's uncanny how so many of these are all coming to a point at the same time, and it seems like the date is about 2030. The human population is on one of these exponential curves, and it is going to be around, I think they said, about 9 million people. And 100 years ago, it was only at 1.5 million people. So that's on an exponential growth. Also, the thought process is also, it appears to be on an exponential growth pattern as well. If you take, let's say, the first thought, the very first use of a symbol happened 100,000 years ago. That's thought number one thought. And I read somewhere, and it must have been some anthropologist that figured this out, is that 100 years ago, when there was 1.5 billion people on the planet, the average person was having 5,000 thoughts a day. So now 100 years later, the average person has 10 times that much, 50,000 thoughts a day, and there's 7 billion people on the planet. So again, it seems like if you take that on a curve, I didn't plot this out on a graph or anything, but if 100,000 years you get one, and then it's like this, and then all of a sudden within 100 years it goes from 1.5 billion people having 5,000 thoughts a day to 7 billion people having 50,000 thoughts a day. That's got to be whew, like that. Same with the amount of energy that's being used globally. It's also 10 times what it was per person. No, 10 times globally what it was 100 years ago. The amount of oil that's left by 2030 will be producing about half what it is now, and also the demand will be on a steady rise. Everything, the temperature, the rising sea levels, all of this stuff is coming together on a trajectory, and then you add on to something that seemingly would be, why would this be related at all, is the advancement of computer technology. And the people in the know, when it comes to this, the people who are instigating it and in charge of it and running it, they've called this point. So this is also on an exponential curve, how technology increases and the computer speed, it's all on another exponential curve. And go figure that the date that they gave for when this technology reaches a point where we don't know what the heck's going to happen, what it's going to produce, what's going to happen after this magical point. 2029 is the date that Ray Wurtzel has given it, and they've named it the technological singularity. So why would they use this word? It's very interesting that this specific word would be used, because it's also the word that physics, cosmology, has given to that state prior to the Big Bang, prior to the creation of this physical universe. They gave that name the word singularity, because we don't know what the heck it is. Basically, it's just one thing. There's no way to describe what that is. So now this is, why would this ability for computers to start building their own computers and possibly build a simulation that would be indistinguishable from this actual experience? Why would these two, the destruction of the environment and the possible extinction of, if not the entire human species, but a great part of it, a great number of, maybe most, if not all, of human species is going to experience vast amounts of suffering and death. So I know this is getting pretty wild, pretty surreal, but if if this realm, this physical realm, is itself a simulation, it's not fundamental reality. And the human species is coming to a place where it may if the species goes extinct and there is something to the idea of reincarnation. So if your consciousness believes that it's a human, believes that it's this body, that it's human, and identifies itself as human consciousness, if the human species goes extinct, there will be nothing for that consciousness to reincarnate into. You get what I'm saying? Is that if there's no more humans on the planet, they've gone extinct, then human consciousness that has died, than is in the death state. It will be looking for reality again, but there won't be any conduit for that consciousness to come in to another physical world. So this is getting a little trippy and out there, and I know it is, but let's say that there's computers that have made a simulation within this simulation, a simulation of this world, then what's to say that consciousness wouldn't feel tempted to move into this further simulation of created by human consciousness and mirroring human experience? What's to say that that couldn't create another world for that consciousness? So again, this is a simulation within a simulation within a simulation. It's just, again, the cycle of samsara over and over and over. And it seems so obvious to me to include that Genesis 3:22-24, where it says, what now that humans have eaten from the tree of knowledge and become as we are. So to me that means that we become self-aware. But now what happens if they eat from the tree of life and live forever? So if you go into a computer that doesn't need food, that is run on solar, that can keep itself running, then you wouldn't need a body anymore, and you could, in theory, live quote unquote forever. Obviously not forever, but for a very, very long time, if you had no body and you didn't need food, and it was just, you were in an electronic, non-physical world. But it's kind of scary because it will just be another deeper layer of illusion. You see what I'm saying? And if you think this is all wacky and really, really out there, then it is. But look at the way human consciousness is moving. It's moving more away from accepting the physical realm as fundamental reality. And it's moving towards accepting information as being fundamental reality. So I talked about the relative realms, right? So I know I exist relative to my physical senses, right? There's that. But it seems as though human consciousness is moving away from that, and now we're relying more on the relative realm of thought for our reaffirming our existence, right? I know I exist relative to the thoughts that are in my head, more than this realm. It's true, right? If you really look at objectively at it, consciousness is moving more towards a non-physical reality, what it's accepting to be fundamental reality, which isn't, not even this is fundamental reality, but there seems to be maybe this huge paradigm shift in consciousness is this moving into the thought realm. The non-physical realm will become the new accepted reality. And I'm just wondering, consciousness that takes this route, that goes through into this new paradigm, I wonder if it's a great big reset button. And I wonder how long it'll take for that consciousness to pull itself out of this huge cycle of repeating itself over and over and over. There are these huge shifts, even the magnetic poles shift from time to time. Like, what the heck is that about? You know, like, there are these huge shifts, and they call it a singularity. Hello. It could be the creation of an entire new reality. And what I'm saying is that consciousness that goes along for the ride in their state of delusion might be in for another really, really long. There's something special about human consciousness that it seems as though we've come to this, and I touched on this in one of my other videos, a couple of my other videos, that we have this self-awareness, and all it takes is to just a little subtle shift in our focus of awareness. We become enlightened and get out of the whole cycle, or we can keep falling deeper and deeper into it. And it seems to me that we're on this knife edge right now. And the reason why I made this video is because of the urgency of it. To me, there's an urgency to it now, that there's no more time to fuck around. Now's a really good time to devote everything, all of your energy possible, into waking up and into the spiritual practice of simply shifting your awareness away from thought, away from physical sensations, and to find reality. Find that which does not change. If you find that what does not change and is always the same, on which all this shifting and changing is taking place, then you'll be fine. You'll be rooted in reality, and you won't fall deeper and deeper into this delusion and follow the cycle just aimlessly, ignorantly, in delusion, going along for the ride. There's just peace and bliss. There's nothing to fear about not existing in a relative state. The absolute is just peace and bliss and contentment. So, as best you can, mind likes to be interested, and what could be more interesting than watching all of the human species die out on your computer. But it's quite likely that watching this may develop a little bit of anxiety in your consciousness. So what I would suggest is that limit it to as little as possible. If you want peace, then stay within. It's not cold, it's not uncaring, it's just reality. Do you want reality, or do you want your own immediate experience? Stay within your own physical senses and don't go out with your mind. That's really, really important. And even beyond that, for complete liberation, even your senses. What's having the senses? Stay in that. So it's your choice. Do you want peace and contentment, or do you want the roller coaster ride? Because there's a big dip coming up here. Again, don't do this out of fear, but there's a sense of urgency. Let's get to it.